Thank you very much, Albert. Hello and welcome, everybody. I really appreciate all of you coming out for the Azon 30-day challenge. Awesome, great. Glad it's connected up good for you now. If you don't mind, put a yes in the chat box for me. If you can both see my screen and hear my voice, just want to make sure everything is connected up good on both of our ends. Awesome, great, getting flooded with yeses now. Thank you, Barry, Linda, Daryl, Cher, Gina, John, George, Albert, Sharon, Cheryl. Thank you very much. We're going to be getting started in just another minute or so. Just want to make sure everybody has enough time to get in here. I have a really exciting series planned for you guys. I think you're really going to love it, and it involves a little bit of a combination of some of my new strategies over the last year or so that I've been using to target higher competition niches, as well as some of my long-term reliable strategies that I've been using for many, many years. And obviously, I'm going to be building my own site, but in addition to these live classes, there will be checklist guides that go along with each class, and these will be published the day after each of these live classes will. I strongly encourage that you go through these after each of the live classes. You will have access to recordings from the live class if you need to review it, but then you're also going to have these checklist guides that you can use to proceed through this work. So as I do something each week, you then spend the next number of days working on that same material yourself, and then when we come back together the following week, you should hopefully be caught up with that point in the training with me, so then you can proceed on with the next part. And then by the end of the 30-day challenge, you will have a completed Amazon site built right alongside of me. So you not only get the training, but you actually get something concrete out of going through this course. Now, I also, you dare me to say your name. Shalini? How's that? Shalini Gupta. Close, but not quite. I try at least. Obviously, you might have some questions as we are going through this training. I do welcome questions, but I would ask that you try to hold them until the end of the class. I will have an open question and answer portion of the series at the end, and we'll stick around as long as I need to make sure all of your questions are thoroughly answered. Daryl, I might be able to do that. He's asking if I could critique our completed sites. There are a pretty decent number of people in this series. However, I don't think everybody would necessarily try to submit a completed site to me. If you get to the end of this series and you have your site built and you feel like you really would like a little bit of additional feedback, send a link to RyanStevensonPlugins.com/support. Let them know you're part of the Azon 30-day challenge and provide a link to your site. I can't guarantee any kind of turnaround time on that because it definitely is not something that I had tried to plan into this series, and with the large number of people, it's possible that I could get flooded with those, but I will at least try to take a look at each one of your sites if you would like to send it to me that way. And I'll add some information about that in the members area for this series as well. I want to go ahead and get started for you guys here. Beginning a little bit with an overview of what we're going to be discussing in this particular class. So now for the first class of the Azon 30-day challenge, what we're going to be working on here is researching and selecting our Amazon niche. And then we're actually going to plan the main subject of 20 pages of the website that we will be building. Now, I say to build 20 pages because this is kind of a general guideline that I usually go by when I build my own sites. And it's not that a site can't do with more pages, but if you try to put too much on your plate to start with, it can become an overwhelming amount of work, and you're kind of inclined to just push the project off to the side instead of actually complete it. So that's why I kind of recommend the 20 pages. It's enough to get you up in the search rankings, but not too much to overwhelm you with a lot of work. And then you can always go back to your sites, see how they're doing, and add in additional content if need be. This also allows you to work more effectively when you start small and then grow from there. Some sites may end up not working out if you don't plan your approach to it correctly. So this also helps to ensure that you don't spend too much time on any one individual site before realizing whether the site is going to be profitable for you or not. However, if you try to stick by my guidelines really close, especially with the keyword research areas, then you should find that your site will get Google traffic and that you will be able to convert that into Amazon sales with a really high percentage of reliability as well. So with that said, I have this whole process of mine broken down into 6 main steps that you can see here on my screen. Brainstorming niche ideas, researching the niche keywords, expanded keyword research, choosing a niche, completing our research, and finally planning our site pages. So I'm going to be walking you through each of these here tonight and also showing you my own work for this same process. So you not only get to learn about how it's done, but you're going to get to see it done in person as well. So to start with, for step number 1, what we need to do is brainstorm some niche ideas. I like to just use a trusty old notepad for this. And I will take this notepad and go over to Amazon.com and browse around for products. However, there may be some situations where maybe you know a lot about a specific type of product, and you'd really prefer to be able to build a website about that kind of product instead of going out there and randomly choosing something. It is quite okay if you want to take that approach. It can certainly help you when it comes to building the content for your site. However, if you build more than one site over the course of time, you will find that you eventually run out of niche ideas and you need to go hunting for more. So I do want to show you how I actually go about finding products that I would consider to promote. And this is something that I do on Amazon. So what I'm going to do is actually go on to Amazon and try to find a couple of examples of niche ideas that I can then record to my notepad, and I will use this information as this class progresses. So to begin with, you could obviously try to search for something or do some kind of general browsing where you go through a particular category to find products. You also have access to things like daily deals and even best-selling products. The best-selling products are actually one that I kind of prefer to look at when I'm hunting around for something. If you go into any category like I've just done here through this menu, you can find the best sellers for that category in a link up at the top. Now, this is likely nothing new to any of you, but the real question remains, and this is a problem I have seen repeated by a lot of Amazon affiliates over the years that I have been teaching them, is that these best-selling products, while they are popular and they certainly sell online, they likely have a large amount of competition because that is probably what has propelled them into a bestseller status. Unless you're talking about an Amazon product like the Fire TV Stick, for example, where Amazon is obviously going to be running their own promotions on this particular product. Any other kind of product, though, that is on Amazon, if it is a best-selling product, chances are it's getting promoted by a large number of affiliates too. So how do you actually go from taking one of these best-selling product ideas and turning it into a profitable website? And that's actually something that I'm going to be showing you. It's not a question that I can answer in one simple statement, but over the course of this class and even the entire series, you will see exactly how I am accomplishing this these days. So what I'm really looking for here when I am trying to choose a product, because ultimately, if you follow my recommendations with keyword research, you should be able to find a way to target any product that is out there, no matter how much competition may exist on it. So you should really be more focused on choosing a quality product that is actually going to sell. And one of the easiest ways to know that the product sells online is to actually see it in a bestseller list on Amazon. So that alone kind of gives you a little bit of confidence when you go after anything that you see pretty much in the top 100 of any of the main categories that are on Amazon. So now, in addition to looking for things that have obvious sales data to back up the fact that it is a high quality niche, you also want to look at customer feedback to indicate whether the product is a quality product or not, especially if you really don't know much about the products. And then you also want to pay attention to the price of the product. Ultimately, the price of the product is really going to govern how much you are able to make off of a website. If you are limiting yourself to promoting $20 products, $30, $40, $50 products, it's really a little on the difficult side to get a site to start earning a lot more than $50 to $100 a month or so. But if you target things that are $100 and up, it then becomes a lot easier to break that barrier because you're obviously on a commission-based pay scale here. So my $100 product, if I refer a sale on it, if it's an electronics product, for example, I might only earn 4% on that. So that would be about $4 in my pocket for every sale referred. So if I wanted to earn $100 a month, I would have to refer 25 sales on that $100 product. But then if I could increase that to a $500 product, I only need 5 sales in a month to hit that same earnings mark. But you also don't want to kind of go overboard with that. When you get up into extremely high-priced products, it's not very likely that people are going to end up buying it on a snap decision through your website. So I do try to stay under the $500 mark unless I have a really good reason to do so. I might feature one particular really high-priced product on my website, but only if it actually applies to my niche. Like I've done 3D projector websites in the past. And most of them are in the couple $100 range, but then you do have a few that are just jam-packed with features that cost a couple $1,000s. And I put those on the website, and they didn't sell very often, but I did get some random sales on those really high-priced ones. It's just that the $100 to $500 range seems to be the more comfortable range to go after. So what I want to do now is to actually try to browse through some of these products and at least brainstorm some possible niche ideas. At this point, I have nothing set in stone. I'm really doing research to try to figure out what would actually be feasible to build a website to surround. So you can obviously browse through the bestseller categories, and then you also have even more defined categories down below any of them that you can browse through. I recommend drilling down into these categories to a certain extent. However, keep an eye on the review count as you do this. When I work my way down into a category, the review counts tend to get much, much lower because I'm dealing with a more specific type of product. Well, when I start to see something like this, sure, this product might be a best-selling product in this category, but it's really hard to tell how many actual sales are happening on this product because there's only been one review on it. And even for the number 2 product, there's only been one review. So when I start to see this, I start to question whether there really is enough demand for this product to be sold, or it could possibly be a newly released product. For example, if I look at this really expensive Blu-ray, and I think it's a recorder right here, this one isn't showing up here as a hot new release, but this cheaper product that is in the number 1 spot is the number 1 hot new release. So there's a decent chance that this product might actually be getting pretty decent sales, but it's simply a new product. So always consider some factors like that before you dive into anything. But just as a wild example here, if I'm glancing at this bestseller category, I'm really not putting too much weight on anything that I see here. This one looks like it might be a decent selling product, but the price on it is simply so low that I'm not going to get much of a commission from it. So when I reach a category like this, I try to back up a little bit and go a little farther up the chain and maybe work my way into some different categories. You can also kind of reset your search at any point by going back to any department if you want to then try to drill into something else. So I want to kind of look for a higher price product that seems really, really specific, and also something that gives me a unique perspective on trying to sell that product. You have to think about it like this. Anything that you're going to build a website around, you not only are going to have an ad for the product, but you're going to need to have information about that product too. And in a lot of cases, when you're dealing with a high competition niche, you can't directly go after the product name or the model name. As an example, the Kindle Fire, hugely best-selling product on Amazon. But if you were to try to build a website about the Kindle Fire, chances are you'd have a really hard time getting traffic to it. especially if you tried to target things like basic keyword phrases like Amazon Kindle or Kindle Fire HD. But if you're dealing with a type of product that is more than just a frivolous expenditure, so to speak, something that is solving a problem for somebody, these products get into the realm of having a lot more content that you can really write about it. So you kind of want to be on the lookout for also something that has a lot of information connected to it. As an example, here on my screen, I'm seeing nice product prices dealing in the $100 to $200 neighborhood. These products also have decent reviews on them, and a fair number of them. And they are also showing up here in a bestseller list. But it doesn't seem to be as simple of a niche as tablet computers, for example. These, I would assume, are used for hunting. I'm not a hunter myself. However, I've built websites about things that I've never even seen in person before, things that I really have no personal knowledge about. So I can kind of look at a potential product and decide whether or not that product would have a lot of extra information relating to it. I can imagine that hunting is not as straightforward as it might seem, especially with newer technological advances. I'm sure you have all different kinds of products that are out there and different reasons why you would want to use them, different problems essentially that they would help to solve for those hunters. In this situation, these are night vision products. These can help to solve an obvious problem, which is being able to see. We're simply limited when it comes to our eyesight, but there might be certain game that maybe is only out at night. So I know simply from that basic assumption of hunting that this could be a nice niche to go after, and it could also have a lot of information connected to it that would allow me to build content for my site. So I'm going to pick one of these here. This one looks kind of interesting, and it has a really high range of prices to go along with it. I'm going to record it for now. It is a night vision monocular. I also like the fact that the product is maybe a little different in terms of the keyword phrase that somebody would use to go looking for it, as opposed to a more common keyword phrase within this same category, a hunting scope, for example, I'm sure would have a lot more competition on it than a more unique type of product like a night vision digital monocular. So this kind of helps me to get away from some of the competition that might be in a niche while still sticking to keyword-based targeting in terms of what the product is actually doing, what the product brand or model might be. All these different aspects can be keywords that you can target with your content and then to try to get a search engine ranking for it. Now, I also like the idea here of this kind of more modern technology. It's given me a little bit of an idea to go a little deeper. I don't know if there might be something in this particular category or not for it. It reminded me, though, of a show I caught randomly one time. I think it was Finding Bigfoot. where they're running around with their little thermal cameras. So again, this could be something. I'll go up to the camera thing. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to search for thermal cameras and see what comes up. So just random ideas that pop into your head can sometimes be worthwhile exploring on Amazon to see what kind of products are out there. Maybe not for a professional, but more for the average everyday consumer. Looking at the products that are available here, this kind of looks more like something the professional, quote, Bigfoot hunter would actually be trying to use. It's pretty expensive. It's a $1,000 product. But there looks to be a pretty decent amount of activity in terms of sales on this product. So this could be something worthwhile pursuing, potentially. This one has also caught my eye, and it appears as though there might be a number of different types of them as well. Actually, looking at it a little closer, I think the top 5 here in these search results are all for smartphones. So we have thermal imaging for smartphones. And this picture that they're showing you gives me a really great idea for how you can go about targeting something like this. This helps to solve a problem for people. You have areas where there's high crime, where you have a lot of home break-ins and things like that. Some people live alone and, might be a little scared entering their home, wondering whether or not somebody could actually be inside of it. But what if you could just pull out your smartphone and hold it up and look at your house real quick and know automatically, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there's no one in there, that you're completely safe? Something like this could have real value for the average consumer, and it has unique ways that you could go about targeting it. And based on the number of reviews that I'm seeing for these products, it looks like it's something that actually sells pretty well too. So it's not just speculation of mine that these might actually be useful to people. There's real data here to kind of back up that speculation too. So I'm going to add this one to my list, and we will come back to it in just a few and take another peek. So now I have found one type of product by browsing through the bestseller list. I've also found another product that just came to me in terms of an idea off the top of my head. And then I also want to talk to you about going after something that you might have some personal knowledge about. For me, I recently had some computer malfunctions, and I did some hardware upgrades. And in addition to what I needed to fix it, I went a little beyond that to make my computer simply more reliable and to allow it to perform better. One of the things that I did that I've seen the most improvement from for the amount that I spent for the item was actually a solid-state hard drive. So based on my own personal experiences, I know that this product helps to solve problems. I also know that it has a decent price tag to it because I bought one myself. They can be anywhere from $50 upwards of thousands of dollars if you get into the ones with a lot of storage capacity that are really, really high speed, even though those are more for corporate applications and not really for the home user. But as a home user, one that has tried this product myself and has found a lot of benefit from it, I feel like there's a lot of things that I could share with people about this product that would help to save them time, help direct them to the right product, and ultimately to help solve problems for them. So this is another one that I'm going to add on to my list. I'm just going to put SSD for now, which stands for solid state drive. So with these three topics now, night vision monocular, thermal imaging camera, and solid state drive, I can take this information and proceed on to the next portion. You can see here, I went to Amazon, I browsed for my products, and I have now created a list of my potential niches that I want to try to target. So next up, we're going to be doing some keyword research. This keyword research is something that we're going to do on Google Keyword Planner because it gives us real Google search data. But then we're also going to go to Google itself to research competition. Now, this step of the process is extremely important. However, I feel like a lot of times this is where people kind of get hung up when it comes to searching for a niche, because I've gotten hung up in this same location too. I feel like I have an idea for a really great niche, and then I come over to Google Keyword Planner and I check out the competition for it, and there's tons of traffic and also tons of competition to go along with it. And so then I find myself at kind of a dead end with that niche. Do I go looking for something else, or do I still try to build a website around this topic? So having said that, I want to search SSD to begin with. I know this is going to have a lot of traffic, and I even know ahead of time that it's going to have an enormous amount of competition on Google. I would obviously not want to be targeting a really generic keyword phrase like SSD, or likely even one of the slightly more specified ones that maybe means the same thing: SSD hard drive, SSD disk, SSD drives, even the full writing of that solid state drive. I'm sure all of them are loaded with competition. So how would I actually go about trying to target this particular niche? I can't do it in a broad way. I have to try to find a unique way of targeting the niche that is also something that people essentially have a demand for. And there's really opportunities like this that exist in a large number of high competition niches. And a lot of times the quote unquote professional marketers will overlook these things because they don't see it as a buyer opportunity. They see it as an informational search phrase. Well, people that search for information when it comes to solving problems are often willing to then buy something to solve that problem that they've been searching about. Or else why would they bother going out there and trying to find a solution for it? So I've done this myself and used this approach, and it works really well. You just have to give people the proper information to lead them from asking the question or wanting to solve a problem to actually wanting to buy the product. So you need to be informative and convince them that this is the product that is going to solve their problem. And you need to actually be right about that too. Don't just randomly guess at what may or may not solve it. Now, if you don't know about a niche ahead of time, you can always research that kind of information. There are forums out there where people talk about this kind of stuff all the time when they're actually buying the products. You can go to places like this, learn the information yourself, and then teach people on your own site to solve the issues that they are searching for. So when it comes to the solid state drive, since I can obviously not go after this in a broad sense, I have to try to find a more specific way of targeting it. I could look at one of these other keyword phrases that has a lot lower traffic levels and try to go after it instead. Sometimes you'll find really good ideas in the Google Keyword Planner, and other times you simply won't. However, if you know a little bit about the product itself, you can kind of adjust your search in terms of what you kind of would want to target. Using the solid state drive as an example here, the reason why I wanted to get it was to speed up my computer. I wanted to speed up certain things that I do for work on a very regular basis. Things that are typically very intensive on the resources on my computer, stuff like video editing. So right off the bat, I can already think of speed being one of the factors that brought me in to this particular type of product. It's why I purchased it, to help to try to solve a particular problem. So now I just typed in fast SSD as an example to try to get Google to refine these results for me and to show me something a little more relevant to what I have in mind for this product. While I do have a lot of the same generic keywords in here, I do have other things thrown in that were not showing up on my previous list that do relate to what I was searching for. Fast SSD only has 320 monthly searches, but fastest SSD has 4,400. So I'm going to go ahead and simply adjust my keyword brainstorming ideas here to reflect that, since I knew ahead of time that SSD wasn't going to be feasible to target. With that said, now I'm going to take these three phrases and show you how I take my initial idea for a niche and try to verify whether or not I can actually target it. I'll go ahead and switch topics here for a moment. I'm going to go to the night vision monocular. Now, the night vision monocular has 4,400 monthly searches. So what I want to do is record these numbers as I proceed through my research, so I can refer back to it and be able to make a clear judgment call on what might actually be the best thing to target. So now I'm going to search for thermal imaging camera, and I see this one has 18,100. Now typically, I would try to avoid niches like this that have so much traffic on them, and as a result are very, very likely to have a lot of competition in these search engines. However, I told you that I wanted to show you some of my more recent techniques for going after some of these high competition niches. And so that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here today. I'm going to be going after something that's much, much larger than what I have typically recommended to target in the past, because I'm not necessarily going to be going after these specific keyword phrases. I'm going to be going after these ideas as a niche. And so the specific keywords that I end up targeting may be different from these. It just kind of depends on what my competition really ends up looking like. So once I have some traffic levels for my keywords, I go over to Google and I'm looking to do two types of searches. I add the word all in title without spaces, then a colon, and finally my keyword in quote marks. What this is going to tell me is the number of pages that Google has indexed on the internet that contain this exact phrase in the actual title of the page. So as you look down, you would actually be able to see night vision monocular in every single one of these page titles that is showing up here. Even this one that you can't initially see, the word that's not showing up after it is definitely monocular. I record this number for each of my keywords, and then I also remove the all-in title from the beginning to where I just have my keyword phrase surrounded by quote marks. And I also record this number. So now, this last search here, with it all in quotes, this is the number of pages that Google has indexed that use this exact phrase, but anywhere in the content of the page. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the title. So what this tells me from a quick glance is this many number of pages may actually be trying to target this exact keyword phrase. And in general, I like to see this all-in title number to be as small as possible. The lower the number is, overall, the lower the competition is going to be. Once you top maybe 3,000, upwards of 5,000 all-in title results, you really kind of hit a level of competition that becomes much harder to beat. You have to have an overwhelming amount of content, sometimes thousands of words, to be able to compete with those sites when you're dealing with a large number of results, somewhat like the night vision monocular search here. The second number here, I like to again see this as low as possible, preferably though somewhere under the 50,000 number. Again, as low as you can possibly go, much, much better, but 50,000 or so and anywhere under that is usually at least feasible to accomplish without having to kill yourself with a ton of extra work or a lot of extra backlinking and things like that. So with that said, I'm going to continue on here and just finish up these three searches. For thermal imaging camera, when I put it all in quotes, I have 470,000. And then my all-in title has 33,700. Now take a look at the differences between these two keywords here, especially with the all-in title numbers and the quote numbers. There are less pages with thermal imaging camera in the title than there are night vision monocular. However, more pages actually use this phrase in the content itself compared with the other ones. So they're actually backwards, having to do with those two stats there. The reason why you have stuff like this happening is because you have marketers that are creating pages that are obviously going after a Google phrase, such as this one. So then they end up putting the keyword phrase in the title of their page, and that causes an inflation in the all-in-title number. So when you see something that has more all-in-title results and a lower quote number result compared with other keywords, you can usually look at this and think that there are going to be more marketers that are trying to target this particular niche. Now again, this is no guarantee. This is kind of an assumption here, just something from my years of doing this same type of thing. Now going to the next one, here we go. This one is looking really nice. 1,550 for all-in-title. And then for just my quotes, I have 51,000. Now I told you 2,000, maybe even 5,000 and above with your all-in-title is going to indicate a lot higher competition, including everything that is obviously beyond those numbers, like these first two keywords. And then for my quote number, I'm generally looking for something 50,000 or less. I have been able to use my strategy to get on keywords that maybe have 100 or 200,000, but it requires a little extra work or placing more emphasis on that particular page on my site. But in terms of just trying to target any given keyword phrase with just one page of content on your website, that 50,000 number is again what I'm trying to look for here. So now, looking at this, I obviously have one niche that is standing above the rest. My 4,400 searches is the same on that keyword and also on this keyword, but my competition here is about 5% of the possible competition that I have on this keyword. So when I'm dealing with the same traffic level, obviously I would want to side for the keyword phrase with a lot less competition. Now this also kind of works out beneficially for me because I have a lot of knowledge on this topic already, because this is something that I just finished doing myself. So it's really fresh in my mind. I have one of these actual products myself that I can maybe even use for a review video. And so I think I could actually help people in this niche to help them solve their problems and also to then attract Google traffic and convert it into Amazon sales. However, I also want you to consider that when you reach this point in the process, if you hit a stone wall like this, and the idea that you really wanted to go after is showing a ton of competition, don't throw it out the window quite yet. There is something else that you might be able to do to actually still target a really high competition niche like one of these two that are on the top of my list. Now, to a certain extent, the solid state drive niche, if I just went for the general keyword phrase here for this niche, you can see the overwhelming number of results that is here. 14 million. And this is with the word in quote marks. So that's 14 million compared to 500,000 and 1/3 of a million. So these actually don't look so bad anymore compared to something like this. So the real question is, how could you go about targeting one of these higher competition niches? Or even something like this, where my keyword might be somewhat low competition, but overall, I know that my niche is jam-packed with content that already exists out there about it. So how would I go about trying to target this? And this actually leads me to step number 3 in this process. So as you can see, we have gone through Google Keyword Planner. We have researched the competition on Google for these initial niche ideas. And then I have also recorded my traffic and competition levels for each of these. You can do this in a notepad. If you prefer, spreadsheets work just fine too. I just happen to be a fan of using notepads because I kind of use the notepad for more than just recording numbers. So now for step 3, we're going to continue on with expanded keyword research. Expanded keyword research is where I can take that higher competition niche and break it down in a way that actually allows me to target it with much less competition. So this is something, again, that you could try to do with pretty much any high competition niche. And this is especially the case if the type of product that you want to sell can help to solve any kind of a problem, whether it is a personal problem, whether it is a life problem, whether it is a physical or health related problem, or simply a problem with somebody's hobby or even with their job. These are going to be the most common things that people actually purchase online as a general rule of thumb. So when you have one of these products that has problems associated with why people buy it, then you have unique ways that you can go about targeting the product. So what we're going to do is things like researching different product names and models that relate to this niche. We are also going to research some of these problems that the products can solve. And then we can perform keyword research with this information. And as always, we want to be recording all of the information that we are actually researching here, because this information can help us to decide on which niche we're actually going to pursue. So with that said, I want to jump back over here, and I'm going to start on Amazon with the first part of this, which is to research additional products, and specifically the names of products, the brands of products, and even things like model numbers of products. These things are common for people to search for. They might be looking for a review on it. They might simply just be looking for the best price on the product. So they go over to Google and they perform a search for a specific thing that they are looking for. So I'm going to record information relating to the niche that I feel like I'm most likely going to be going after here, the solid state drive niche. So I want to look at what some of the products are on Amazon that meet my criteria in terms of being a high quality product that people actually seem to enjoy because they have reviewed it really well. And especially in high numbers, you can be much, much more confident that when, like here, 86% of people that have bought this product, and we're talking about 86% of 4,000 people have rated this a 5-star product. So you get a lot much more confidence with stuff like that. And then obviously things like my product price are going to be important to me as well. So I'm just going to open up a couple of these pages here. Now on this particular page, this is the Samsung 850 EVO. And if I look back at my previous screen, the second product that was actually listed here is the exact same product. The only difference in it is the model number and the capacity of the product. However, it actually brings me to the same page on Amazon, and then people can choose the different varieties. So as you can see here, for a really high capacity one of these things, somebody can spend over $700 on it. So these things can be rather expensive, but your average user will stick within this range right here. Even so, $100 on average will still give me a nice commission per sale. Knowing that this product sells really well and that it meets all of my other criteria, I'm going to record my info for this, and that would be, I want the name of the product in terms of the brand and the model to go along with it. And if you have a specific model number like this here, make sure you copy that as well. So what this means is that the actual product name could be a potential keyword that I could go for. The model number could also be a keyword phrase that I could go for. So I could then continue on doing the same type of thing, selecting a couple of different brands of these products, and maybe even a couple different types of the same brand, but different products within that brand. So something like here, I have the SanDisk SSD Plus. Also have the model for it right up here. So I would continue on doing this same type of thing for, you don't have to do it for a lot of different products, but try to find what you believe to be some of the more popular products in that niche, and maybe even some of the newly released products in that niche. When you know you're dealing with a really high competition niche, such as the one that I'm diving into here, I can be pretty confident that unless the product is a new release, there's probably going to be a lot of competition on all of these possible search combinations. However, I still want to record them and look into it, because if I can find one that has much less competition on it than normal, then I might be able to attract search engine traffic using those different types of phrases. Now, one other thing I like to do while I am here is I go ahead and copy the Amazon ASIN for the product. You can find this up in the title. Just look for B00, and it's just a string of letters and numbers in between these forward slashes here. When you copy this, you can easily find your way back to the exact product that you are looking at, and this can even help you out in the future when it comes to creating advertisements for these products too. So now once I have some basic information like this, some product names and models, I can then go back over to the Google Keyword Planner and I can search for this. So I can do Samsung 850 EVO and look up how much traffic is available for this. And so the same thing that I was doing before with my general topics, I can do that again here with my actual products. And then I can do it again with my model numbers even. Now, this one is not showing up. However, I'd be willing to bet that there is still traffic for it. I'm just probably not getting it punched in the exact right way. This one right here is actually, I believe, in a similar line of there were all the different sizes. Each of the different sizes has a different model number to go along with it. I believe this one here would be the 250 gigabyte, and I think this one here is the 2 terabyte one. So something like this, the 250, which is going to be more common for people to purchase, might be a more feasible option for me to try to target instead of the more expensive version of it. So I'm going to change my keyword selection here to this one, and then I will record my traffic levels. I'm just going to do this for this one particular product here to begin with. And we'll go back over to Google now. And I will search for this product and record my results. So I can already tell here that this actual product name has more competition for it than my general niche idea. I have about twice as many all-in-title results, and I have about 4 times as many quote results. This definitely tells me that my niche certainly has a lot of competition on it. And while I might be able to get a search ranking on this keyword phrase, or maybe on a more specific variation of it, for example, the different size capacities, I could easily add something like 250 gigabytes to the end of that keyword phrase, and I'd be willing to bet there's still search traffic for this phrase too, and it might be a little less competition than this one has. Actually, that has a little more. That might be one of the rare exceptions to that. But as you can see though, any one keyword phrase can easily be molded into different keyword phrases. So what you're really looking for is the one that offers you the most potential for traffic with the least amount of competition resistance for you to be able to get up there and get some of that traffic. I'm going to do the same thing once again here with my model number. All in title, I have 3,940. And for quotes, I have 160,000. So now there are actually more pages that use this specific model number in the title than use the actual basic name of the product in the title. However, there are less pages that go after this particular model. Ultimately, though, when you're going to be targeting these different Amazon products, you kind of end up with separate pages of your site, and each individual page either promotes a specific product like this one here, the Samsung 850 EVO, or it might promote a brand of products but for a specific type. For example, I could, instead of having a different page on my site for each of the different Samsung solid state drives, I could just have one page about Samsung solid state drives, and I could promote a couple of those products within that one page. I've done both of these approaches though, and really either one works out fine. It's really all about where the least resistance is going to occur at for you to be able to reach that traffic. Now, in addition to this basic research for more product names and models, something you have likely also done before, you can continue on from there and dive into keywords having to do with the problems that products can actually solve. So now, if I didn't know anything about a solid state drive, I might go and search for it and simply read through a few different pages. I might check out the Wikipedia page. I might try to find a couple of forums or technology-related sites that offer up some information having to do with this topic to learn about what those actual problems would be. But once I have that knowledge of what my problems for this product are, then I can take that information to the Google Keyword Planner to help me to come up with more ideas for things that I can target, for ways that I can actually tap into the high traffic levels of these niches that generally have really high competition, but without all of that competition. So for example, one of the things that I wasn't necessarily buying the product for, but one of the side effects that I have seen from it as a result is that Windows starts up really, really fast. Generally, I had to sit there and wait for like a minute, sometimes maybe even 2 minutes or something if there was a recent Windows update that was done to it. It would just take forever for things to kind of happen, and even loading Windows up was one of them. Well, after the solid state drive, I definitely recognized a major difference. I could tell that Windows itself would actually load up to the screen where I have to punch in my password. It would only take about 15 to 20 seconds at the very most. And even if there was an update, it would usually only stretch to about 30 seconds or so. And so the same type of thing kind of applies across the board to everything on the computer. Anything that needs to access a file or write to a file on a computer to be able to work will benefit from adding a solid state drive and running that off of that hard drive instead of a standard hard drive. So knowing this firsthand information, and if I didn't know this information firsthand for this particular product line, I could easily have found out that kind of stuff by just searching around on Google, learning a little bit about the product, reading through a few forum posts about the product. So I can then come over to Google and look for something like Windows slow loading time. Now, while I don't have any keyword traffic on the exact way that I decided to phrase that, I can easily see that there is a lot of traffic out there for all different kinds of combinations of this. Windows 7, slow startup, computer running slow Windows 7, slow startup Windows 7, slow computer Windows 7, Windows 7 slow boot. So you have all kinds of different examples of this type of a situation and a decent amount of traffic to back it up. I'm going to try out this one here, Windows 7 slow boot. I'll go ahead and record this information. And then I'm going to go over to Google just to get an idea of what kind of competition I might be dealing with. So now when I put this in all quotes, I get 3,350. And when I do the all in title search, here we go, I get 223. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense right now and kind of makes things really click for you. This topic has a nice amount of traffic to it, and incredibly low competition compared to everything else that I have looked at so far this evening. Even though my traffic levels might be a little under what the other ones are, compared to the amount of work that I would have to do to reliably get a search ranking on something like Samsung 850 EVO, would be a ton more work than it would take to actually get a ranking on this keyword phrase here. However, both keywords can lead me to still sell the exact same product. In fact, I can still target both of them on the same website. And this is what I actually end up doing. I'll have a number of pages on my site that target a specific product. I described this to you before, where I might have one product per page, or maybe I would do a whole brand worth of the same type of product on an individual page. So I can have that page on my site that goes after these keyword phrases. And then I have informational articles on my site that go after these keyword phrases. Ultimately, though, I have these pages link back up to my original product pages, the pages where I ultimately want to see my traffic end up. Obviously, I need them on my product page to get a sale on Amazon for it. But when it becomes much harder to bring in traffic for a product phrase, it's a lot easier to bring it in on an informational phrase to help to solve that problem for people by use of a product that you recommend. So you're not only still getting the sale here, but you get to tap into traffic that is largely ignored because it doesn't have a direct relation to a specific product. That is why you have all the marketers going after phrases like Samsung 850 EVO, and almost no marketers going after Windows 7 Slow Boot. But I guarantee you, there is tons of traffic out there for these types of keywords, and there is a direct relation between those problems that they're searching for and products that you are trying to sell with your niche. So explore your niche as much as you possibly can. The products that you could promote, figure out the problems that they're going to solve, and see if you can find traffic out there relating to these ideas. For me, in addition to something like Windows 7 Slow Boot, I could target all of the other Windows operating systems. I bet almost every single one of them also has their own search traffic relating to that version of Windows. So we would have Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. That's just 5 different versions of Windows that are currently in modern use. And so people would likely be searching for them. And the same product solves that same problem no matter what kind of computer they're using. So I wouldn't even necessarily be limited to Windows at that. You have other operating systems. I have even more topics besides that I could try to go after. General informative type of content, stuff like what's really the difference between a solid state drive and a hard disk drive. So I could do something like SSD versus HDD, just as a very general example. Tons of traffic searching for things like that. And if I could get a little more specific with what my topic would really be about here, then I might be able to find a low competition angle to approach this at as well. Things like making your computer faster for gaming, for work purposes. I can even get into specific titles in addition to these general uses, where instead of targeting gaming as a general, I could target maybe Grand Theft Auto as a specific game. Instead of doing something like solid state drives for video editing, I might even be able to find traffic relating to Adobe Premiere Pro, a very specific video editing title. So explore all of these different possibilities that relate to your niche and really try to figure out where the high traffic, low competition angles exist that you can actually utilize and try to exploit. So once I have reached this point, I have looked at, sorry, I skipped over it. I have looked at additional product names and models, and I have researched traffic levels and competition on them. I have done the same thing for problems relating to my product. And again, I have recorded all of this information to go along with it so I can glance back and easily decide what are going to be the good choices here and what's not going to be such a great approach. And again, you do all this based on the way you actually come up with these competition levels. You're looking for high traffic and as low of numbers as you can possibly find on the all-in title and the direct quote searches. So now with this said, once you have gone through and created a list, kind of like I've done here, where you have your main niche topics, and then you dive into each niche topic a little bit, like I have done here, to find your different products, and then also to find some different informational approaches, such as problems that you can solve with that particular product. You can then kind of make your niche selection at this point. Once you have all of this information available to you, at any point before you reach this stage, if you decide to go with your niche that you have been thinking about targeting, you might be essentially shooting yourself in the foot if there's no easy traffic that you can get to for it. Or maybe if you just simply don't find those easy traffic sources before you actually can start the work on it. So I find this to be really important with my own site building, to avoid creating sites that essentially just sit there and do nothing. So what I want to do at this point is to analyze my research data. I want to think about my content possibilities for the niche, whether or not I'm going to need to go and research more information. Also, whether or not there are topics out there that I can write about, whether or not I have prior knowledge of those topics, the traffic levels, the competition, and also the stuff like product prices, the review counts, and the bestseller data that can help to back up your assumption that a product actually does sell on Amazon. Consider all of this stuff together, and when you have one that fits all of this criteria, and you have a low competition and high traffic keyword source of traffic for that same niche, I think that is when you can really zero in on one and say, okay, this is the one that I feel confident in targeting. When it comes to my own niche, at this point in the process, I didn't feel super confident about going after the niche because I knew that the niche as a whole had a lot of competition in it. Even when I explored the products themselves, I still wasn't all that confident. In fact, I saw more competition with the products than I did with the general topic. But then once I got into topics having to do with the problems that these products can help to solve, that's when I really started feeling much more comfortable with targeting this topic here. When you're dealing with really low competition like this, even if I could get access to half this amount of traffic, or even 25% this much traffic, 400 or 500 monthly searches is perfect when you're dealing with this amount of competition. I'll write articles all day long for 500 monthly searches if I see this kind of competition, because you're almost guaranteed to get respected by Google. Even if you can't land on page one immediately, when you're dealing with something like this, you can almost always get yourself up into the first couple of pages, and then you simply wait a month or two, and your page will work its way up the results as long as you have provided that quality information that people are looking for, and you're helping people to solve that problem. If you can't send a real person to your site and actually help them with what you are building in terms of trying to sell these Amazon products, consider a different niche choice. Simply because that is the future of affiliate marketing, especially if you are dependent upon Google traffic. There's no way to get around this. Even if you can find a way currently, that way will be wiped out in the future. And this is coming from my long-term experience of seeing different tactics come and go, different Google algorithm updates come through and wipe out all these different sites. And people start screaming, Google hates affiliate marketers. They, release this new algorithm update and it wipes my website out of the rankings. Well, the truth is that Google doesn't hate affiliate marketers. Google hates marketers that put nothing special out on the plate. Google hates automated content. So much so that Google actually employs their own personal raters to review their search results. And if your website is not helpful, it will eventually get flagged and your site will disappear from the rankings. So solve all those problems from the get-go and only target the stuff where you can help people and then help to refer them along to a product sale. Now this brings me to step number 5, which is to complete my research. Once I have decided on the niche that I want to target, then what I want to do is dive into that niche much deeper. I want to choose all the different products that I'm going to promote. It is okay if you find one at a later point in time that you want to throw into it, but overall you want to have a general idea of what you're going to promote beforehand so you know what to plan for, so you know what pages to build on your site, so you know what content you're going to need and how to arrange everything. So first thing you want to do is to pick all of those different products. Just like I was doing here on Amazon to begin with, for my initial research for product names and model numbers, I want to continue on with this same type of thing, where I'm actually recording different brands, and then I proceed on and get Google information for that as well. Make sure you're getting, though, in addition to your brands and your the actual name of the product, get your model numbers and also get your Amazon ASIN as you go through. Now, the number of products that you want to try to promote on a site can really vary from one situation to the next. It depends on where that keyword traffic is available at. I have had some sites where I can simply put up one page of content having to do with a specific product, and I can attract search traffic for, say, a specific product name, like here, Crucial BX100. There are plenty of examples where I've been able to attract the traffic with this way. And then there are other cases where, like for example, with these solid state drives, where I know that the competition on the product itself is going to be high, and so I have to approach it in a different manner. When I can't go after the products directly, or at least when I can't rely on that being the main source of traffic for my site, for those product keyword phrases, then I tend to have less product pages on my site as a whole. So in this situation, I feel like I'm definitely going to need to go a little heavy on the content, because I am targeting more informational phrases relating to the problems that this product helps to solve. And then I will have a few pages on my site that promote these specific products. However, based on the way these products actually work and the ways you have different models and different types of the product, I can certainly see the need for promoting a couple of different varieties within one brand name. So I'm a little more inclined to maybe even go after a brand-based page where I have, for example, Samsung solid state drives, and then I promote the 850 Pro and the 850 Evo, and maybe even the older model, the 840, all on the same page. That way I can kind of compare those products for people and help them to decide which one is going to work out the best for them. It also gives me the opportunity to tap into a wide variety of keyword traffic for that one specific phrase. As an example, IKEA down comforters. You have a lot of different kinds of these in terms of the different model names for it. But when it comes to one of those specific model names, like IKEA My Saran here, you can get really great search rankings for those pages without using that exact phrase in your title. And a perfect example is this page right here, one that I actually built myself. This is on downcomforterguide.com/IKEA. The title of this page is IKEA Down Comforters. There's no mention of My Saran in my title whatsoever. And yet I still have a number 3 search ranking on this product phrase. And there's actually a pretty decent amount of traffic on this keyword phrase. This is actually one of the top performers for that entire website. And in fact, I have even outranked IKEA itself for that exact phrase. So using this as an example, and even surefire proof for you that Google does respect pages that are made in this manner, I can have my Samsung solid state drive page and have it going after a couple of different types of that product and do it all within one page. So again, I can do the same thing with my solid state drives. And so I'll likely end up with just brand pages instead of specific product pages. Now, the reason why it's important to know all this ahead of time, and also why you kind of need to think about how much content you need on your site, is so you know how many products to pick. If I were to go through and select 10 different solid state drive products and ended up wanting to put them all on specific pages of my site, I would likely end up needing to build a 30-page website to really include enough informational content to cover it. Another part of why I would personally choose in this example to put everything under a brand page is because there's really not a huge difference between the different models. Things like these two examples. The only difference here between these two is really having to do with the capacity. The speeds can be slightly different between these two, but it's really more in relation to the size. So ultimately, when you're doing benchmarking, there's not a major difference. The smaller ones actually end up being slightly faster than the larger ones do because there's less information there. So there's really not a lot that I could talk about. If I were to make 10 different pages and each one of them covers a specific product. However, if I'm covering each brand on one page, I can point out why that brand is special for that kind of product, and then talk about the differences all in one location, and it'll help people to make their decision a little better. Now, again, I'm not saying this is best for every possible niche out there, but for this particular one, I feel like this is going to be the best direction to take, and also knowing what kinds of informational content I'm going to need to be including on that site. Now, in addition to choosing more products to promote, you also want to explore more potential keywords that you can target. If you did not really do an in-depth exploration before you picked your niche, maybe when you had 3 or 4 different niche choices, and you kind of just wanted to do a couple of items for each niche to try to figure out which would be your best choice, and then you wanted to expand and do all of your extra keyword research, now is when you will want to take care of that before you actually decide what the different pages of your site will be about. This, however, I don't feel like we'll need a lot of additional demonstration. It's the same thing that I've already done for you involving these extra product phrases and checking them out on Google in terms of the traffic and the competition, your model numbers, and also your informational phrases relating to things like problems that you might be able to solve, or just simply general information that somebody might really need to know about a product before they can actually choose which one they want to buy. So again, record all of this information, record your product names, the Amazon ASINs, and all of this expanded keyword research. Now, this is not something that I could really do over the course of one single class while sitting in front of you guys. So it is something that I have had to go into in advance and actually explore You can see right here though, I've gone ahead and picked out products for this niche. The Samsung 850 Pro, the 850 EVO, the 840 EVO. I've got a couple of the Intel solid state drives, couple Crucials, couple SanDisk ones, and then a couple of accessories that are commonly needed to go along with it. I have also explored keyword data and competition data relating to that, and I have even gone deeper and explored a number of different informational topics that I will be able to target and get decent keyword traffic on. Do this same type of thing with your own niche to where you have a really good understanding of what kinds of things people might be looking for having to do with that product, the ways that you can attract the traffic to your site, and ultimately get those Amazon products sold. So now when you have reached this point, you can then continue on and actually plan out your entire website. You want to make a list of all of the different products and keyword phrases that you want to target. If you can still refer to this list of yours that you've been creating and do this same type of thing without having to necessarily see everything all on one screen, that's fine. If you need to make a separate list for this particular purpose, that's quite all right too. I generally end up making a separate list for it though, and it'll start to look something a little like this, where I have my products here. As I mentioned before, this is going to work out better for this particular site to group everything into brands and do a couple different products on each of those brand pages. And then I also have all my informational content having to do with those different problems, or maybe just general info relating to this niche. All of this, again, is based on some kind of keyword information. And a decent portion of these, especially when you deal with these informational pages, a decent portion of these are actually low competition keywords that have a fairly decent amount of traffic available for them. So what I have done is tried to sort this information into a couple of different topics. My product pages obviously will all end up together for a section on solid state drives, or maybe a section on solid state drive brands. And then all of my informational content gets grouped together. However, you may end up wanting to split your informational content. If there is a very clear divide of two different kinds of information, then it might be worthwhile to do. For example, here, I could do general info on solid state drives and just have all of my articles in that category. But I could try to get a little more specific and maybe have a general information category that dealt with things like talking about hybrid solid state drives, comparisons between a solid state drive and a standard one, what is a solid state drive, generic information like that could be moved off to a different info category as opposed to topics that relate to how to make your computer faster, Windows slow boot times, faster computers for gaming, things for video editing. Ultimately, if there is a very clear divide between your information, you do want to try to separate it. But your end goal is to end up with something like what you see on my screen here, where I have all the different pages that I want to create on my site. And again, this is all based off of my keyword data. If I look at my keyword data here, my Windows slow boot time ends up on a page. I have a couple different topics about gaming relating to solid state drives, which wraps into this article here. Best solid state drive for the money. Things for video editing, information about defragging solid state drives. Things like PCI Express. All this stuff is based on actual keyword research, as are my product selections. I have keyword data for the different products that I want to try to target within each of these individual brands. Ultimately, this is where you want to end up with your 20 pages. Also, though, make sure you're counting the generic pages of your website, your home page. You obviously need a page for that. I will be recommending for you to create an about page that has some basic information about your website, including the required disclosure for Amazon affiliates. I put this on the about page, so I also count that page as well. Then with my product section, I'm going to have 5 pages here, in addition to my actual main category page for my products. So I have 6 here, 2 more up at the top, so that puts me to 12. My main category page here for all of my info content, and then I have 11 articles under that one. So that's 12 more pages here, plus my initial 8. I've got 20 total pages now. In addition to having an idea of what I'm going to be building on my site at this point, though, what this also does for me is allows me to group everything, allows me to get a clear picture of how I will structure my website and even how I will end up designing my website to look. This kind of thing, knowing it ahead of time, can help you to save a lot of effort down the road. And it can especially help you to avoid making websites that don't end up working out, that aren't able to get into the Google rankings to attract traffic, and then as a result are not able to refer Amazon sales. So you can add a lot of reliability to this entire approach by simply going through this research ahead of time, coming up with a list of all of your different keyword phrases, which are going to be main topics for a total of 20 pages on your website. Now, when you go through the course material, you're going to have a checklist guide that will walk you through each of the main items that I've been discussing here with you tonight. And then you'll actually be able to check those off in the member area. So then when you come back the next day, you'll still see your progress. You'll still see your progress from the week before, even as the series progresses. It'll make it a lot easier for you to keep track of where you're currently at and what your next step should be. And so just try to proceed through one step at a time, and you'll get through this site construction in no time. Okay, let's see. Viviane is asking, do you find all of your info keyword phrases in Google Keyword Planner? I do not always find them in there. Ultimately, I might be using different sources to try to come up with what they are to begin with. For example, the problems that might be solved by a particular type of product. If you're not sure what those problems are, you go and research the problems and you get a general idea of what that problem is. So for my solid state drives, this was the computer running slow, or simply, wanting to improve performance, things of that nature. So once I get an idea of what those problems will be, I'll then take that information and punch it into Google Keyword Planner and try to find some kind of concrete keyword phrase that I can actually base it on. The reason why I do that is simply because what I might be searching for, what I might have in mind, where before when I was searching, I'm pretty sure this was the phrase that I searched for. Yeah, where I searched for Windows slow starting time. I didn't have any monthly searches showing for that particular keyword phrase. However, there were tons of phrases that mean the exact same thing that actually do have a lot of traffic on it. And so without using the keyword planner to kind of help you refine your idea into a concrete keyword phrase, you sometimes might just slightly end up missing the mark, where you have a page targeting the correct amount of information or the correct type of information, and you might even provide really helpful information there. But ultimately, if you don't make use of the phrases that people are searching for at least once somewhere within your page content on that article, then chances are you won't end up with a search ranking on one of those keyword phrases. So that's why it is a good idea to use the keyword planner. Even if you know what you want to kind of go after, you still want to kind of come here and verify the exact wording that you should really be using. Otherwise, people might not search for that exact wording, and they may never end up seeing your page, even though it might be, a really awesome page for that particular purpose. Let's see, Daryl is asking, so ideally it would be good to find a niche that has several products versus going after a niche that is actually one product with different versions. It really kind of would depend on the amount of information about that product and the amount of information that could then relate to that particular product. With my solid state drives, as an example, while I have selected different products, essentially they're all the same thing. There's really not much of a difference between them except for storage capacities, read and write speeds, the number of times that you can actually read and write a byte to the drive. There are certain things of that nature are really the only differences between those products. So it's not necessarily a case of choosing a niche with a bunch of products as opposed to a niche with only one product. It's really more about having enough informational content on that site and ways that you can go about attracting traffic, which in a lot of cases with higher competition niches does end up being the informational content. So I have built sites that only deal with essentially the same product, but a whole bunch of different versions of it. I've built at least a few of those, and they work out fine too. The difference there, though, was that all those different versions, people actually were searching for them, and the competition was low enough to where I felt like I could actually build a separate page for each of the different versions. And then on top of that, to where there was enough information for the different versions to warrant a separate page. So when you're dealing with maybe a situation like what I have here, where where I have my products and I have my different brands, and where I have chosen to group everything onto a brand page instead of having, say, 3 separate pages here for the Samsung products, as opposed to just one Samsung brand page. The reason why I go for the brand grouping of the products instead of separate pages in this example is simply because there are not enough differences between them. You want to be able to write a bare minimum of 500 words or so about a product or about a topic. And if you can't really write that many words about the topic without really having to repeat yourself over and over again, then you might want to, combine it in with something else. So ultimately, knowing the differences myself between these, I could probably write them in 2 to 3 paragraphs at the very most. So it would be really hard for me to write 3 separate articles, 500 words or more per article, and to have those articles actually be significantly different. They would largely be the same article for those 3 separate pages. So that is why I have grouped them all into one. So I hope that makes a little more sense and helped to answer what you were asking there. Dawn is asking, can I use an old site I have and redesign it using these principles? It is quite possible that you can. The main thing I would recommend to do is to make sure that Google has not essentially de-indexed your site or flagged your site in any way. For example, if you had an auto blogging site about solid state drives and it had thousands of articles on it, but none of that content was really unique, and you really didn't get any kind of Google traffic off of that website, it's possible, Google might have kind of flagged your site already, and it really becomes a little more difficult to kind of overturn something like that than it would be to just start a brand new site. However, if Google has not done something like that towards your site, maybe you were, manually building your own site. It does have unique content, so there wouldn't be anything there that Google would count against you, but maybe you're simply just not getting the rankings yet. A site like that could be beneficial to have as an older site, because as your domain name gets older, Google will respect your site more and more over the course of time. So with that in mind, what I would recommend to do is look at the pages of your existing website and try to find one of your pages that has a fairly long, unique name to it that you think would most likely not occur in that exact way on other websites out there, and search for the entire title of that page on Google and see if you can find yourself anywhere in the results, even if you have to go 10 pages deep. If you're searching for basically the exact phrase of a long titled page on a site like that, and you can't find yourself anywhere, Google may have very well put a negative note on that site already, and it may be worthwhile to simply start over. Another thing you can do something like a site search, where you type in the word site, followed by a colon, and then your domain name, and simply verify that Google does indeed have your site indexed. And then on top of that, try and take a long phrase, like something like this one, for example. You search for this, you should be able to find that page at least somewhere in the search results, especially if this whole phrase is not an exact keyword, something that's not going to have competition to go along with it. If you can't find your page, then it's probably best to just start over there. Otherwise, it could be okay to simply redesign it. Go through all of your existing content. If you do feel like Google has not already penalized your site for any reason, go through your existing content and see if any of it fits in line with what you were planning. See how you can maybe even work that content in. It could be a separate category on your site that maybe includes all of your old archived content. Or that content might go, grouped into some of the other categories that you have planned on it. It just kind of will depend on the individual site in terms of working that in with what you may already have. But it certainly can be done. The only way I would not recommend it is if you see any sign of Google having flagged or penalized your site. You are quite welcome, Dawn. Let's see, John is asking, for someone new to this, what is a reasonable amount of income that can be expected per site? I know there are a lot of variables, but just a rough estimate would be appreciated, and how long does that usually take to achieve? That's a really good question. It is a bit of a difficult question to answer because it does vary from site to site. But in general, with the approach that I'll be teaching you guys, the sites with the 20 pages, the initial 20 pages that you create, on average should make somewhere between $50 to maybe upwards of $200 a month, depending on what kind of a niche you actually decide to go after. Now, obviously, the first site that you build here throughout this 30-day program will take a month to build. On future sites, though, you should be able to go through that same process a lot faster to create additional websites. If I really sit down and focus on nothing else but building my Amazon site, I can do it from start to finish in about 4 days or so. If I really wanted to, I could sit around and pump out, a decent number of them every single month. That's kind of how I got started doing it. These days, I'm lucky if I get one made every month or two. However, for the average person, I would say 2 weeks or so is fairly reasonable to build an entire website from scratch. And then in terms of how long it takes to actually start making the money from that website, if you go after a lot of these lower competition phrases, like I have planned for you to go after, things where your all in title numbers are under 1,000 or even under 500, these become much, much easier to get rankings on. And you can actually have a top 10 Google ranking on some of those phrases before your entire site is even completed. So at the end of the 30-day program, you may already have some traffic coming to your site from those lower competition keyword phrases. And so with everything set up well, you can begin to actually start referring your Amazon sales in your first month. Sometimes it may take a little bit of refining, especially if it's a first approach. You might need to look at what traffic is coming in and see how that is actually working out. Sometimes you end up having to make adjustments to what products you're promoting, where you're promoting them at, how you're directing traffic through your site. So, there are different variables like what you were speaking of. But in general, a couple of months, and you should definitely be seeing some kind of traffic, and halfway decent traffic on your site, in fact, that can convert into Amazon sales. In general, I tend to see, it seems like maybe 1 or 2 people will go and purchase something through Amazon per 500 visitors or 500 page views, sorry, that are happening on an average Amazon site of mine. And so each one of those people, sometimes, just depending on what your site is about, sometimes they purchase one product, sometimes they purchase a number of different things all at the same time. So there is a lot of variability with stuff like that. But in terms of the approach and in terms of getting Google to pick up your site and start sending traffic to you, that can easily happen within a couple of months if you go after the right higher traffic, lower competition phrases. That is a good question. Daniel Rhodes is asking, are you using the terms post and pages interchangeably? I actually do sometimes tend to have the habit of using those interchangeably as a result of WordPress. However, when we get to the actual site building portion of this training, where we're using WordPress to create our site, I will become more specific with that because I do use posts and pages separately in different manners in the WordPress system. But at least as far as tonight, if I've said the word post or page, they're definitely interchangeable. Paul is asking, and I think this is a really good question as well, is Amazon the only site that you get your products to build your sites around? There are plenty of other places that you can find affiliate products to promote. It really is going to depend on your niche as to what might be the best option. You have sites like Market Health that are good for health and personal care related topics. You also have something like ClickBank where you can deal with digital products. But again, you're not going to have that apply to everything. For example, if you're going after some kind of fitness related niche where you might have some fitness products that you're promoting from Amazon, you might also have some kind of digital training course that is available on a network like ClickBank or even JVZoo that you could promote, and those do offer the potential for much higher earnings per sale. A lot of times the digital training courses can give you a 50% commission. And so if you can refer a sale on a $30 training course, then you end up with a $15 commission. Whereas if you wanted to get a commission like that on Amazon, you'd have to refer a sale on almost a $400 product. So with that said, if there is another affiliate network that does seem to have products that fit your niche well, or if Amazon is maybe missing something that you feel like would be a good fit, it is okay to go elsewhere to look. However, be careful about which networks you decide to use. Look into their current terms of service and everything. Find out what their minimum payout amounts are, how long it'll actually take them to pay you, things of that nature. As an example, Commission Junction, CJ.com. They have a lot of physical products as well, just like Amazon, that you can promote. However, the products that are on that network, sometimes they're completely different from what might be on Amazon. They might offer a higher commission on Commission Junction, but there might be a $100 minimum payout amount for that account. I'm a past heavy user of Commission Junction. I still use it to a certain extent these days, but nowhere near as much as I used to. I don't know if they have changed that $100 limit down, if they have lowered that or not, but I know it was $100. When you're dealing with just having one affiliate website and promoting products off of different networks, you might simply run into the case where you aren't able to send enough traffic to each network separately if you're using a couple all at the same time. And so even though you might have made $200 with your website already, it might be spread out amongst a number of different networks, and it might be 6 months down the road before you hit your minimums to actually receive a cash out for those things. So that's really the main thing I recommend to keep in mind. If the products fit your niche, it is certainly okay to go elsewhere. Just try not to overextend yourself with too many networks and or too many minimum payouts and too many networks to the point where it takes you a long time to actually end up getting paid from it. Now, obviously, this becomes less important over the course of time if you build more and more sites. For example, if you had 10 different sites and they were all promoting products both off of Amazon and another website like ClickBank or Commission Junction, then you really wouldn't have a lot to worry about. You'd likely be hitting the minimum payout every single month because you had a number of different properties all feeding into it. Let's see, Paul is asking, what are my thoughts on a keyword that has 27,000 searches, 2,300 all in title, but 608,000 in quotes? I'd probably recommend, just from a general perspective, try to get a little more specific with that. It sounds like you're pretty close. 27,000 searches each month, though, is probably a little on the high side to really expect the competition to be that low. It sounds like, though, because of that vast difference in the all-in title number and the quote number, it sounds like there could be a lot of competition for that topic, but it may simply not be a topic that becomes the primary subject of a page. For example, on a page where I might be here, this IKEA page that I mentioned before, I don't use the model of the product in the title. However, I'm definitely targeting that phrase on that page by making use of it. So it simply sounds like it's a heavily used phrase in your case, Paul, but it's not necessarily used in the title of different pages. So I'd simply try to find if you could make that phrase a little more specific, narrow it down just slightly, and you might find what you're looking for there. See, Vivian is asking, what range of time do you allocate on average for research and planning? In general, I will often do that all in the same day. However, if I'm not necessarily working on it exclusively in terms of that being my only project, it might take a couple of days for me to progress through the research and the planning. The way I have split it up into 6 different steps, if you only have, say, an hour a day that you can devote to trying to work on a site, then, take one portion of that, one of those 6 steps, and, try to do that little part each day. So if it does take you a week to progress through the research and the planning stage, that is quite all right. But try not to get too hung up on it. And even though it can be tempting, try not to completely research and plan out more than one side at a time. It's really easy to kind of distract yourself with multiple projects, things of that nature, until you kind of get used to being able to churn it all out. It's much more useful to just focus on one. And so the time frame's not really that important, I guess, as because each different person might be only able to devote a certain amount of time to it. But you definitely don't want to get hung up on this part of the process.